Palm Springs is basically Groundhog Day, except a little more of a rom-com than that. Because Groundhog Day, there's still the love element of that. Basically, this guy who's already trapped in this looping time thing brings in someone else by accident, and she learns to get used to it, but then she's motivated to try to figure a way out when he's completely resigned that they're not going to get out. I gotta say, the credits start rolling at 83 minutes, and I love that. I love that this was not a 2-hour movie.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many movies that are like this. It's like a comedy with some,
a rom-com
young star. Yeah, and they're like 2+ hours, and every time I'm thinking, look, lose half an hour and you'll be so much easier to sit through. And I thought Andy Samberg was actually really appealing. He was expressive. He was, funny when he needed to be. He wasn't like an over the top goofball though. He was like, funny.
Yes. That's actually what I really enjoyed about it, because I've seen some of Andy Samberg's films before, and I do enjoy my goofy, stupid films where sometimes I can just turn my brain off and just watch something dumb. But at the same time, I really enjoy him in this part because it wasn't that. He kind of played his stupid role of just mindless idiocy at points, but it wasn't his film, so it wasn't Hot Rod. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but Hot Rod is very much that, where it's just kind of nonsensical, just kind of stupid out there. But he kind of brings that silliness to this film, but someone else wrote his part. So I thought that was good.
When there are those moments of silliness, they work. And so I actually really liked how they did that.
Yeah, and he actually kind of fits that part too.
So I liked him better in this than I think anything else I've seen him in, actually. I was surprised how much I liked him.
Yeah, same. And I'm actually surprised that I liked this film as much as I did, because in the first 10 minutes, I was thinking this is just going to be a stupid rom-com. Like, that's exactly what I was thinking. Like, I got the feeling of it because the jokes weren't landing for me in the first 10 minutes. Everything just kind of felt bland and boring. But
I thought that was great. Like the first 10 or 11 minutes, I was getting the same feeling like, is this just a typical sort of rom-com movie?
Yes.
But then there's the great twist just happens, and I thought it played really well.
Yeah, are you talking about the part when he actually goes into give the speech?
That part I was kind of cringing still. I was like,
okay, well, let me tell you why it worked for me, because when that part came up, I've been so conditioned to rom-coms where he's going to say something stupid and he's going to make a fool of himself and he's going to be the idiot boyfriend because it's Adam Sandberg, Andy Samberg, whatever. But it's him, and so it's going to be stupid. Like, I was prepared for it because I've seen this a million times. And then it actually turns to be this heartfelt speech. And then that was like, okay, the film's trying to do something different than what I've seen a billion times before. So that's when I really started buying into it. And then it goes into this completely different direction when he goes out into the desert with her, and then he starts getting shot by J.K. Simmons. And I thought that was great because it just goes in a completely different direction. You're like, what is going to happen? What is going on? This is completely different than what the trailer made it seem.
Yeah, I really liked that. But I my interest was piqued when J.K. Simmons shows up, and it's like, okay, all right, this is interesting.
And I also like the dialogue in it. I felt the dialogue was pretty witty at times.
Yeah, it was. I think the dialogue is well written, and the characters, they're coherent, and
you can understand them. Yeah.
To me, the mark of good writing is to be able to see a character for just a moment and still be able to understand who this person is.
Right, and you can either do that through dialogue or through props or through costume design. And in this, I mean, the one that really just kind of soared it through with me was the dialogue. You can also get that in different parts too. I mean, with Sandberg wearing his Hawaiian get-up shirt, and you can just tell that he's just completely out of there. Yeah. It really played into the rom-com kind of comedy. Like the first part I actually laughed wasn't until it was further into the film, where he is in the car with the girl and they're talking about how they could potentially escape this time loop, and then she's like, no, I'm just gonna kill myself, and she's about to plow into a car that's headed towards their way, and then he's like, well, and it's great because he's so conditioned to this. I love how there's a character that is already a part of this universe, and she is just there for the ride. And he's like, well, it's better just to kill yourself and get it over with, because there's nothing worse than dying in the ICU for 48 hours or something like that. See you tomorrow.
I like that a lot too. I think their dynamic worked really well for the first half of the movie, especially
when you first meet him and he's talking to people at the wedding, and he says, and this older woman comes up to him and says, "I've been to more weddings than you can imagine," and then he says, "You'd be surprised." And at first you're thinking, well, what is he talking about? If you haven't really seen the trailer, you don't really know what's going to happen. And then another one when he's talking about his girlfriend, and she's going down on a guy, and then he's with his future girlfriend, supposedly, and they're right outside, and then he says to her, "Trust me, there's not a world where these two do not end up together." So really clever writing. Really like the writing.
I would make a distinction between the dialogue writing and like the overall character ideas. Those I like those, but I think the overall like story progression I wasn't as much a fan of. It kind of took a twist like about halfway through, or like 45, maybe like 50 minutes or something. Basically, their relationship comes together and they make love, and it seems like, oh, okay, they found a way to kind of be happy together in this place. But then she like does this turn where she's really distant and like so driven to get out, and they illustrate that that's because she's waking up in the bed of the groom. So like they'd had an affair the previous night, and like she was feeling really guilty about it and hates waking up in that bed. Okay, that's fine, but we saw nothing of that up until that point. So to me, that came out of nowhere, and it just felt so jarring that it wasn't a natural progression of where her character was.
Okay. See, for me, I actually enjoyed it because in the beginning, again, if you look at it at a second watch, you can actually see this look of disdain on her face whenever she wakes up over and over again in that same bed. And I'm actually fine with them withholding that information. Maybe you're saying that you wish that it could have been done better or more effectively. I felt like that worked for me and I felt like that it was perfectly put in at the right moment, because she's feeling like that she really enjoys this person and she's really getting along with them. And then all of a sudden, boom, this just keeps on happening. I just need to get out of here. This is my realization.
But her realization comes at a time when in the previous scene, it looked like, they'd been getting close. And so immediately she's like really distant and not like keying him in on things. Whereas I would have thought they'd be more of a team, but she's like running away on her own and she like leaves for a good portion of the movie. And he's really distraught that she just left. That was weird to me, because it seemed like they would hold on to each other, or she would hold on to him. Like, okay, I feel I feel a connection with this guy, and he knows what's going on, and maybe we can help each other find a way out of this. Like rather than she gets like super hopeless and super depressed and super like distant instead. And I didn't understand why that was the natural conclusion, because she had seemed to not be weighed down by those things up until that point. Although at the very beginning, when we first see her, you're right, we do see like she's getting super drunk at the wedding. We see her when she's standing with the other bridesmaid. She looks really sad, which I thought was kind of a weird shot, because like we didn't know her at all at that point. So I'm like, wait, why are we like focusing in on this other girl? Is she going to be a character? I guess she's just really sad.
Right. Like it could have been communicated more effectively. Maybe if they put it through the film a bit more, because there is one scene when she figures out, or she doesn't figure it out, but there's one scene when she thinks, okay, maybe this is a typical rom-com, and maybe I need to do something to get myself out of this time loop, like those other movies. Yeah. So she goes and confesses something to her sister, but you don't know what's going on. And I do think that still works. But in order to further strengthen that point, that maybe they could have dropped that in a little bit more subtly. But it would also make sense that she's withholding it from Adam because she doesn't want him to know, and so it's almost natural that the audience doesn't know, and then it does save that punch for when that moment actually happens.
I think just to have like half the movie go by without us really seeing anything like that. Not it doesn't have to be explicit. I'm not saying like it has to tell us that she was sleeping with the guy or whatever. I feel like if it had been shown through her character a little bit, just like she would like have her,
like she was feeling shame in one scene.
Right, the shame or the distraction or something, but we just don't see that at all. I like that it didn't do what a lot of dumb comedies do and just like cheapen itself with the gags or with I don't know,
with stupid humor, and that was the thing. I'm so glad that it wasn't rom-com. I'm like that's what really sold it for me, was that it just wasn't a typical rom-com film. There's just a dozen of them. There's so many of them, and so I was so glad to actually feel humor from an actual like rom-com. And I think that it was because that they kind of took Groundhog Day and then they just that scenario and then they put a sci-fi twist into a rom-com, and I just think it really worked out well, and it played into the story beautifully too, about how we need to move on from our comfort zones and how we need to just risk it and actually take something and get out of here and do something completely different with our lives, instead of just staying in something that's just going to make us comfortable for the long term.
Yeah, I agree. I think I would have liked him to have some extra twist to the setting, because like the time loop thing has been done before in lots of other media. Like, because this kind of story's been done a lot. I mean, with obviously Groundhog's Day, but also End of Tomorrow, and like 50 Star Trek episodes. I would have liked to see some little extra twists to make it a little more unique. As it is, it was very generic. It was just, well, we're just redoing this day over and over again. And there's a short scene where she's studying theoretical physics or something, and she like kind of figures out why it might be happening from like an energy, I don't know, physics standpoint. That's really glossed over. They really don't get into it. That didn't bother me because it was a character. It was about the character development. It wasn't really about that. That was just the framing device to show us the characters and how they learned through the experiences that they had in the movie. So, like, I'm not really complaining about that, but that would have been a little more satisfying for me, because there were a couple of missing elements that I felt in the character development. I guess what I'm saying is, if you're going to do characters as the main focus of your story, it has to be a little more fleshed out for me. Then I'd like a little more of the story going on, like with, okay, how do we figure out how to escape kind of thing.
For me, I actually think that the plot is different, and it kind of takes the formula and then it turns it on its head, because usually in a rom-com like this, or just anything like this, we need to absolve our sins, and we need to do what's right, and we need to do something, and then everything will be fine in the end, because that's just been done to death. But then this one, they try to do that in the beginning, and it doesn't work. So I like that it wasn't a control by God. It was just, we happen to kind of be in this really crappy situation. They take a different approach and say, okay, I need to learn about physics. I need to do this in order to get out of it. And then on the side, they're also having these character moments that are aiding them in getting out of that situation.
I hear you. I agree that I like that it was not a big focus. Like, it was just, okay, this is the setting and we're using that to explore these themes. I like that it wasn't about like, we got to figure out how to escape. Like, I'm fine with that not being the case. I just felt like it didn't show us enough of her development. Like, it seemed like her character turned on a dime when she woke up that one time, and it's shown to the audience that she's in the groom's bed and she's suddenly off the deep end. He was so intransigent to almost the very end. Like, up until she was about to go alone to try to escape, he was like, nah, I just want to stay here, you know? It just made his development seem a little incomplete as well, because even after they kind of go through the gate and presumably they get back to reality, they're still just like sitting around in the pool doing nothing. So I didn't really see him change. I guess we got to see her change a bit in just, if you compare, for instance, how she was at the very beginning of the movie with the end, it's very different. And that's interesting that she started off, she's a drunken mess and she's really depressed. And then at the end, she's given this lovely speech and, setting the groom straight. Like, she looks him dead in the eye and she's like, clearly would like murder him if he cheated on her with anyone else. And like, I liked that, like the contrast between those two moments. I just didn't feel that the journey between them was consistent. It was okay, this is kind of fun for a while, and then boom, it's like completely different. And with him, he was kind of the same the whole time.
At the end of the film, you kind of think that it's ambiguous, and then it's solved that they actually did get out of the loop. And I kind of wish that it was left more ambiguous, that maybe they escaped, maybe they didn't. They're just chilling in the pool.
Yeah. I think ambiguity could have been really cool. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, because then maybe they're just fine with being in this purgatory. Maybe they never made it out, and now they're just kind of here, and it's just, that's fine. It leaves more up to the imagination.
I was actually very impressed that I don't think there was a single joke in this that made me like totally cringe, which for a modern comedy is really amazing. Like, most comedies nowadays, I don't really enjoy.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I thought was going to happen, because we were talking about, here's 3 films, and I just looked at all of them at first, and I didn't even do research on it. No, like the Steve Carell movie, and I'm just like, it's Steve Carell being Steve Carell. I know. And for it to be fresh like this, I'm very happy with it. I'm happy with it. Yeah, it can be stronger. but from what I've been given, it's refreshing to get a steak from a rom-com instead of a bag of Skittles every single time. So
yeah, I liked it. I'd recommend it. I think it's pretty light and it doesn't drag too much. If it was 15 minutes longer, I'd probably like it a lot less. So I'm glad that it gets in, gets out. You know,
I was so happy.
Job.
Yeah, I was so happy with that it was so short. Like, yeah, because most films are like, oh, we got to make it so long because everyone likes long films. Like, no.
No, I wonder if like Lord of the Rings like has permanentally damaged movies. Everyone's like, people people want movies that are 4 hours long. Oh,
yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Other than that, I would recommend Palm Springs. I think it's enjoyable, especially with all that's going on right now. A brand new film that just came out. It's great.
Yeah, I'd highly recommend it, and it's on Hulu, so it's easy to see. But yeah, good. It's a good time.